It is during this period of childhood that the ego gradually emerges from the self, much in the same evolutionary way that the chick spontaneously emerges from its shell, before taking a permanent seat at the center of one's consciousness, our hub of awareness that we then constantly build upon and reinforce throughout the history of one's life. Due to, in most part, the experiences that the individual is exposed to, this sensitive time sees the development of introverted or extroverted personality natures through the sensate and intuitive functions, ultimately dictating how the individual will react to future experience. We develop a sense of personal responsibility, morality, which is influenced by the nurturing mother and father first and foremost, as well as the days spent embroiled within the school environment. Mythology, tradition, fairy tales and stories play an important role in assisting the child in expanding creative ways to work with both the environment as well as within relationships. The developmental stages of the childhood model of mind ultimately sets the stage for the vocational path that the individual will one day pursue. So overall, we begin to see how vital healthy psychological nourishment is to the positive progression of the human being. Not necessarily exclusive to the morning, but an attitude that will serve an immense purpose throughout our entire allotment of time, as we will see. As we move through childhood, we become mostly preoccupied with our looks, the way that our body looks, an extension of the ego called the athlete stage by Swiss psychiatrist Jung, the stage that most individuals never leave. This is the time that we begin to develop insecurities, as we use the physical world and its influences to ground ourselves in a version of reality. Our interaction with other people and how those people react to us make us feel a unique way, and thus our feelings begin to take priority over our thinking, which then ends the morning and brings us into the afternoon. It is at this stage that the individual unconsciously undertakes the responsibility of the heroic journey. The shift from childhood to the psychological maturity of the young adult, the death of innocence. The untested and somewhat sheltered mythology developed during the childhood years must now be enacted in an indifferent world that cares nothing for one's personal beliefs, successes or failures. The old child has now been cast into a tribe that no longer has clearly defined parameters, roles or rituals for the individual to strive towards, so a path must be cultivated with the pressures and punches of an unremitting life, all the while constantly niggling at the mind. An initiation into adulthood, as it were. It is at this exact precarious moment in time that the individual is tentatively close to surrendering the important journey ahead, falling completely into the collective familial, social and religious enclaves that obstruct the path to adulthood. This second stage of life is fundamentally about the collection of experience, about learning, about taking knowledge from the great teacher, which is of course life itself. The terrible consequence regarding this portion of life is that we must inevitably concede irretrievable moments, indeed some aspects of our very selves must be surrendered to the servitude of work, sacrifice. Carl Jung referred to the afternoon as the warrior stage, where our main concern is to go out into the big wide world and conquer, to do our best, to be the best, and to enjoy the best that life has to offer. We think of ways to cultivate more than anybody else, a stage of comparison, of defeating those around us, and attaining wealth, control and status. Driven ever onwards by the provocative ego, in the afternoon we seek to achieve, to dominate and to acquire. And as every individual is of course pulled by varying tides, this stage of life is set aside for experience, knowledge and the confirmation of status. Moving into the evening of our days, we realize that what we have accomplished so far, all that has been acquired and achieved is not enough to make us feel sufficiently satisfied, fulfilled, happy. We realize that everything we once chased with relentless ambition, money, power, possessions, will keep appearing in our life, but we can no longer attribute them the same value as we once did. Emphasis on the trivial has begun to fade as we concentrate on the more important things in one's life. Now is the time for introspection. Calling upon our past experiences, we sift through the historic material in self-reflection and make a conscious decision on how best we wish to proceed from this point onwards. If, at this time, we choose not to reflect, it is not entirely calamitous for the ego. Rather, we needlessly risk falling headfirst into an endless cycle of repetition, where the positive and negative patterns already established in the morning and afternoon continuously and monotonously play out. This mentality inevitably leads to despair. Should we follow the inclination towards introspection and self-examination, we desire at once to abandon our selfishness. We look to escape our egotistical, self-centered tendencies. We want to give, to help others, to ultimately leave this world better off than when we had arrived. Pursuing selfless servitude, learning to give and to enrich the lives of others, leads to a true maturity and wisdom, which then places us in good stead for the night. Not everyone will reach this stage of personal development, the stage where, upon looking back, we realize that the morning, evening, and afternoon are not really who or what we were and never have been. It is in the night that we recognize everything up to this point was but a journey where we have not been ourselves any of the time, that we have merely been testing the parameters of human experience, fitting in as a necessary survival requisite. Wisdom is attained during this period, where we perceive the true importance of emptying the cup. Stepping back from ourselves, we see the sum of who and what we really are. Free from ego, free from desire. The night is the most spiritual stage of our brief allotment of time here, and understanding this at any point during the other three stages can lead to an ultimate enlightenment with regards to complete knowledge of self. It is then and only then that we can begin the process of unfettered internal development, beyond the restrictions of ambition, ego, and illusion.